Okay, so once you have drafted your princess seam dress, what we're going to do is transfer it to oaktag. So I've cut a strip of oaktag here for us to just transfer information from the pattern to oaktag to make a sloper set before we make a finished pattern out of the paper. So I'm going to go in and all each of my points, just like we would do when we're transferring from fabric to paper, go in and trace my curves. The only difference is if you're accurate enough, you can just go in and cut it out. Okay, so I'm going to go in and all hip line, waistline, okay, and everything else is going to get traced carefully. This is a straight line here. Okay, so everything else gets a straight line. So I'm going to just check it for all this information. And I am going to go in and just all, so I can connect the dots on my grain line. This is the side back panel. So now I'm going to label that. It is okay to label this with ink. And then from our grain line, we'll go in here and kind of connect the dots. Okay, and if I'm careful, I don't have to retrace those lines. I can just go in and cut them out. And I'm going to label this side, back. This is the princess. Dress. This is my waistline. I definitely want to mark my hip line. And then I can go in and carefully cut it out, and then I'll show how to just pattern punch it and put it on a pattern hook. I do want to put, sometimes I like to put the date on there, but I'm going to go ahead and put my initials just so I make sure it doesn't get mixed up with anybody else's. Okay, after cutting out each piece, so this is just my first piece, I'm going to go in and use the rabbit ear punch and make sure I'm not punching a hole too close to any of the edges. not in any of my markings or labels. And I'm going to just punch here, and then I can add this to my pattern hook, so I'll have my complete set. Okay, that I can hang up, and I'll continue to do the other pieces. Okay, another thing to remember is please make sure that your paper is nice and flat when you pin it down, so you don't add or take away or distort the actual measurements for the pattern. So this is our center front piece. And notice on our blocks we don't put any of the cutting instructions, we just label the piece. And I did not put the size on the block on the first piece, so I will go back and do that. So make sure you just have the size noted, because you may have more than one for this size. I am going to go in and just notch also my little princess notches here. Okay, and I'm going to go through and trace my curves carefully. Neckline, shoulder straight. I'm going to trace my princess seam. And if you did have to make some corrections when you altered it, make sure you're marking your corrections so you don't transfer any incorrect information to your sloper. Okay, so then everything else is going to be straight. So I can go in and let me mark. Okay, the center front here. The center front. Waistline. And what we'll do after we cut this out is we'll actually go in and notch it. And my hip line. Shoulder. Okay. This is center front, that's my waist, that's my hip, and this is my princess. And this is, I'm doing size 12, or size 14, sorry. Okay, so next I'll go ahead and cut that out, hole punch it, and then I'm actually going to notch it. So, okay, so I'm going to take my notcher here, and go in and notch my bust points. I can also, if I want, go in and notch my waistline and hip line. That's optional, but normally we do notch the hip since that's our horizontal balance line all the way around the dress. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hole punch and add this to my pattern set and move on to the last two pieces. So for the side back panel, I'm going to go in and notch my waist, and hip. Okay, and I did not put my initials on this one. No need to put a grain line on here unless you want to, because we know the center front is going to be straight. So there's no need to put a grain line there. And I'm not going to put a fold bracket there because that's cutting instructions, and that would only go on my finished pattern that I'm going to add seam allowance to later. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and work on the side front piece. And this actually looks curved. I know on the side back piece we drew it with a straight line. This looks a little curved, so I'm going to just walk it again after I'm finished. So only other thing I'm going to do is go in and to put my green line back in. Yeah, it actually is curved. And I am noticing now that I had 2 inches below my hip line for my center front piece, so I may need to shorten them, or I can just retrace if I want it longer. But from the hip line we just come down straight anyway. This should be a right angle, so I can have it as short as I want as long as my hip line is indicated. So I'll probably just shorten the other 2 that I did. So I'm going to go in lastly and put my grain line back in. Okay. And then do my labels. So this is my side front. And I'm doing size 14. And this is my princess seam dress. And that's my grain line indication. And this is my waist. And this is my hip line. And I can go ahead and cut this out, and I'm also going to notch this piece. Okay, so I'm going to go in and, it's hard to see where I need to notch it. So one is there, one is here. And here. Let's mark my waist. Here. pattern punch it. The pattern punch feeling is good because that means you're done. Okay, and then we just have one last piece to add. Okay, last piece, and I think just my first piece was the short one. So I will probably, if that happens to you, just trace my first piece on another piece of oak tag and make it longer instead of trimming 3 down. Okay, going in and alling my points here. And this is my center back piece. Sorry, my hands are so dry. It's the hand sanitizer. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna take those off. Now, if you're nervous about drawing in your center back guideline, you can also put the guideline down first. Okay, so then shoulder. Green line. Waist and hip. Okay, so this is the center back. Waist. Okay, so there's my complete set. Oh, I do want to go in a notch.